I've received messages from high-ranking politicians with an attempt to try and get that settled.
High-ranking politicians. So then this must be in some way politically motivated. There's some politician that is involved in this.
The particular politician whom I cannot name at this stage, I will name him at some point, maybe during this interview. He was the MEC of Housing in 2016.
You still have your house?
No.
It's gone.
I moved out of the house.
Yes.
Currently, the house is vacant. Every now and then, there's people that go in and out there.
So, Khumo, you then go to the police or you go to the municipality and they say to you, you know who's involved. We can't do anything. Tell me about that. Who's that person?
I've received text messages from the current deputy president.
Paul Mashatile.
Yes.
If you're on the run, no sure, Khumo, is somebody trying to kill you?
Yes.
Today's guest is going to take us to a trajectory that we probably haven't seen in a long time. All of us have been witness to what has been happening at the Madlanga Commission. And we've been focusing on what General Mkhwanazi has been saying. We've been focusing on all the bombshells that get dropped one week after the other about politicians, corrupt policemen, corrupt judges, corrupt lawyers, corrupt companies. And today we get to interact with somebody that has been personally affected by some of this corruption, whose life has been threatened, who's been poisoned, someone that has fought through all the difficulty that they tried to take her through just so that they could silence her. Khumo, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Be Frank with MacG. I think the first and most important thing that we need to deal with here is to find out who you are. Who is Khumo? Where does Khumo come from? Where did Khumo grow up? So just take us through a little bit of your journey.
Thank you so much, MacG. My name is Khumoetsile Moetse. I am a mother of 2 kids, first and foremost. That's my most important vocation.
Yes.
So I've got a 21-year-old daughter, beautiful princess, and I've got a 10-year-old son. So I'm a parent through and through. Professionally, my background, been there, done that in corporate. Formerly known as the fixer, when it was an honorable thing.
Yes.
When we really helped corporations and organizations to get their things in order. And I've done a bit of public service at the Department of Trade and Industry. I've done the likes of Eskom during the crisis, Telkom. So I've been around, and I went into entrepreneurship, and currently, I'm an entrepreneur and humanitarian at large, so I'm known as a humanitarian publicly more than anything. In terms of my background, sure, I was conceived in a military camp.
You were conceived? Oh, this is going to get interesting. Okay.
So I'm very proud of that. Mm-hmm. I talk about it openly. My mother was in boarding school, in Motswedi boarding school. My father was in Inabok military camp. And the two met, and that's where I came from. And grew up most of my childhood between Katlehong and Northwest Province, where my grandparents were running a church. I'm sure you know St. John's Apostolic.
St. John?
Yes.
Yabo
Christina Angu. Ke holetse go St. John, Mupostolo through and through in spirit.
You've touched a place in my heart which is so important. But St. John.
Yeah.
That's how I know.
Yes, no, that's where I grew up. Okay. And what a legacy. And also led by a matriarch back then. So that's the environment I really grew up in. And as you'd know, towards 76, when we really started going in the peak of the liberation struggle, St. John's was very important in the liberation movement. It was
Okay, I didn't know
housing.
this.
Yes. So during the struggle, they would house soldiers in the churches. So where I grew up is between what was then Bophuthatswana and Botswana,
Okay.
towards the border, and that's where the church was. And at night, soldiers would come in, leave their families, ask for prayers, hold meetings.
So makomrita na patwa hin.
Hey.
Yes. Wow.
And then I would wake up with cousins, and it's cousins just in case the police come
Yes.
to inquire.
Come tell us who are some of the famous names that have walked through the church doors. Hey, who are some of those famous names? Come on.
Look.
What do you at least remember? Who do you at least remember?
What I remember very fondly is times where former President Mangope, then of Bophuthatswana Taotona, would send his people to come and ask for prayers. We'd go Khumoetsile, le batho ba kereke ro rapela, pray for rain, pray for peace. We would be asked to go and pray for schools on Thursdays, go rapela dikolo, on Fridays, ke dipetlele. So I really, really enjoyed that. And that's where I guess the humanitarian in me was born,
So you don't want to tell us which comrades used to have at your house?
No. I won't tell you. Most of them, a lot of the good ones in the justice system now.
Yes.
From that side, former Bophuthatswana military, those that used to run courts, really are still serving us well here in South Africa today. So ambassadors, there's one ambassador that is from that side. So, those were the days. And that's where also I kind of ke gabotse politiki mo.
So when I'm original, not heavy hitter because that's when guys are crossing over at the time.
Yes, exactly.
So now you're this little girl that's seeing all of this unfolding right in front of you, right? How would you say that upbringing changed your perspective, shaped your perspective, or even made you the person that you are? Because that is a very strong foundation.
Look, it's had a huge impact on my mindset, first and foremost. My resilience and persistence and macro understanding of the struggle of Black people, in particular Black women. It has given me courage and strength to really also seek spiritual wisdom at every step of the way in everything that I do, because I've seen the power of prayer.
Wow.
During the most difficult times that this country went through as a child. I've got memories of when I was about 7 years old, would come to Katlehong, going to head office, go Rama.
Yes.
Go Handate Masang.
Yes.
And we would come Katreni and get off at Lindela Station. And Inkatha, you remember the Inkatha riots? They chopping men with axes, and it's a bloodbath at Lindela Station. And my grandfather would grab my grandmother's tukuelia white, put it on his head, and catch Ali Ayapare, and then we cross.
Because they weren't attacking women. I remember that because Le Haye Sebokeng, when all of that was happening, they dressed boys into, they'd make them wear girls' clothing because Menkata, for some reason or not, didn't kill women.
So how that has also just impacted me positively now during my GBV activism days was the understanding that really bomme re ka itshwara ka bohaleng, and lead the transformation that the country is currently going through, because there's that conscious respect of a woman and what a woman represents in society. So I get very upset when I see what we have seen as a country where women were killed and all that, to say, where has our conscience gone to,
because
have we stopped?
Let's leave everything else at the end of the day.
Yes, I always say to young people, even thugs back then would not steal from a woman, would not go and break into a woman-headed household. There was community to start with. You would not even notice which house has a father head and which one doesn't, because there was community, which was very important also. From a mental health perspective, I believe community is very important for mental health, especially what we are faced with today in this day and age. Community is very important for mental health, and having that size of a community where you know that whatever you're going through somewhere around the continent, ha ma St. John Arabella, they include Bana Baba Profeta, that thing kind of, gives one courage to say, I've got a community. I'm not alone in this. And the understanding of the fact that certain battles really are not personal. Because when you find yourself in the middle of fighting a crime syndicate in South Africa today, or, being a survivor of gender-based violence, or witnessing human trafficking at its most gruesome levels where women were being killed and all those kind of things, you just ask yourself what is happening. And as a Christian, then the conclusion becomes, okay, it's a spiritual warfare.
Yes.
It's at the next level of our liberation struggle as a people. Forget whatever political affiliation you are. It's our struggle. We've got generational curses, that some of which were caused by colonization, issues of mindset, how women are viewed, where patriarchy comes from, and how today do we as women understand our power and our role in society as the restorers of Botho and who we are. And just really the will to do what is right and fight for what is right.
Of course.
And a lot of people ask me to say, why are you always happy and smiling in everything that you've been through? People like you don't live to tell these kind of stories,
Yes.
They are either in mental institutions somewhere or dead. So it's that prayer life, that foundation that I was given. Really, when you look back, then one, you realize that God has always been there.
God's hand has always been there.
God's hand has always been there, and you come across people that will say, "You are anointed for this. You can do this," and you start coming across a lot of other women going through the same thing, and
you speak about and I can hear the depth from where this comes around issues of gender-based violence. When did it start? How did it start? And how long did it go on for? Just maybe take us through that, because I see that a lot of the things that you're saying stem from that.
Yes. Look, I got married to my best friend at a very young age. Wow. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. The foundation of our marriage was friendship, more than anything.
It's incredible.
We were the couple that, people used to look up to, and as life came with its own challenges. I mean, every marriage has its own challenges. Every relationship has its own challenges. It also becomes exacerbated when there's external parties, extended families, friends, all that negative societal influence and pressure that young couples go through, which is normal in this day and age. So it really affected our marriage a lot. The lifestyle issues, stuff that I've taught young people about as well, to stand as a woman in the relationship and make sure that you keep the center to hold if you come across such a situation where you have to now watch somebody who is supposed to be your partner and one with you get lost in their pain, and you realize that this is but a troubled soul indeed, with so many unresolved issues, some of which obviously are private, I cannot disclose here, but we all have those kind of challenges, childhood
traumas,
childhood
wounds,
trauma.
yes.
And my husband then really had deep childhood trauma and wounds, broken families, like I said, which some of which are results of colonization.
And apartheid, spatial planning, and all of that nonsense.
Yes, breaking the family unit, and as a result, breaking community, which is where most of our social issues as a country stem from.
Yes.
So my ex-husband, late now, may his soul rest in peace, was one of those kids that came from one of those influential, well-known celebrity families. So you can understand the pressure now as life changes and we are in the spotlight and everybody can, take their phone and, throw whatever they want to throw at us. And in particular, him, he was one of the best photographers. I still tell people today he was one of the best photographers that this country has ever
What was his name?
Seen. Emmanuel. Mm-hmm. Yes, and thus I named our daughter Manuela.
Okay.
Yes.
Emmanuel
Muhlame.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Lovely gentleman. Very charismatic personality.
Yes.
So he, at the time, was the one who was out there more, as, I was working, building the family and, just growing together as a young couple and enjoying each other. Those challenges were also there and they grew. The more, back then, to talk about mental health, I understood because of St. John's. Mental health. My grandfather used to deal with a lot of mental health patients. We worked very closely with Bopilong Psychiatric Hospital, where they would send patients, vice versa. We would also send patients there. You'll see.
Because
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So because of that background and that upbringing, that not a lot of people have been exposed to, I understood the difference between this type of mental health versus anxiety versus depression versus that.
100%.
So I was lucky enough to then be patient and supportive enough to understand what I was dealing with in the troubled soul, as everybody likes to say. Oh, Emmanuel is such a troubled soul, They say it very lightly. And we don't look deep into issues that Black men today face. And we've seen cases of suicide where they just can't take it because they couldn't open up and talk. They were expected to be strong and to lead families.
Tigers never cry.
Tigers never cry. Hey,
yes.
Whatsoever. So we come from that generation, but we've transitioned now and healed and awakened as a people to understand really what we are faced with. So some of those things, I would look at them from that perspective and look at my role and why me. We all ask when, things go wrong in a marriage, you say, but why me?
Yes.
And especially when...
You almost take the blame. You feel like you're the one that is failing or doing something wrong, right?
Yes.
I hear you.
So in all those challenges, then it led now to challenges of not being able to have more children, because we tend to default to let's have another baby to keep the marriage together, as opposed to let's go for therapy, which we did go for counseling, marriage counseling. We tried. And then I would suppose the male ego wants to also protect itself and to, trying everything to keep this marriage together. It's falling apart. And now we want to have another baby because we think that's the magic wand that will resolve it. And only to find that now that lifestyle I spoke about, the lifestyle issues now start to kick in and affect his health. And as Musadi Pela, as a Black woman, if the marriage is childless, so you just have one child, you are to blame.
Yes.
It's your fault. Like, put the only one, So when are you having another baby? So it's always the woman's fault. Mm-hmm. I go to a fertility clinic and then it turns out that it wasn't me that had the problem. Which then also, I believe now in retro, now that I've walked the journey, we walked the journey together at some point to try and heal and co-parent our daughter and forgive each other ultimately as we grew older, and understand that these things happen. And perhaps our paths were not meant to be together forever, They always say sometimes soulmates just cross each other's paths to teach each other lessons or to heal each other. Who knows?
Yes.
Why we
to grow each other, to learn from each other, and it doesn't necessarily mean that just your story is a forever story.
Precisely, and it's okay, and we need to stop putting pressure on people to hold on to marriages that otherwise would be better off, put to an end, for two individuals to grow, take their own different paths, and maybe one day meet the one or come back together again.
Yes, yes, because maybe Lady Destiny wasn't saying now. Lady Destiny wants you to meet later.
Yes. And which is also one of the things that we tried much later. Unfortunately, then he passed away when we were trying to really find a peaceful way of coexisting, and he had high hopes of me coming back, as his wife, because his mother came back. That's when now those generational issues play a very important part in how we were structured and how families broke down and those cycles repeating themselves. So it became a challenging period now where we really couldn't keep the marriage together. And that's around the time where the domestic violence, as we would call it then, before GBV became a thing. Because I really don't believe that GBV has anything to do with gender. Yes. It's domestic violence.
Domestic violence, yes.
And a woman can abuse a man in as much as a man can abuse a woman. It's just that it's more women that are affected now in society by this type of societal ill more than men because of the construct of our society.
So here's something, right? And this is something that what people always say. Why didn't you leave? Right? People always say, why didn't you leave? Not understanding that it's a lot more than just the physical abuse. There's a lot more to it than just walking away, right? But when it happened the first time, what did that do to you? Because that's when you realize, one, that you're in trouble. Two, that this is not what you signed up for. And probably in some way, shape or form, hoping that this never happens again. But when it happened for the first time, what went through your mind?
I remember praying to make sense of it just after it happened. And luckily, my daughter had gone to visit my mother. And it was late at night. Immediately after the physical, altercation happened, I prayed to try and make sense. I just couldn't believe that.
Yes, but this is happening to me.
It's happening to me as that, little princess that, was allowed to dance on tables and ask adults why, and sit at the table and look at adults in the eye and question. I grew up free. My daughter always says, Mommy, you forget that you were never colonized and you expect people to have the same mindset as you. So it was a shock to my system. It was a culture shock. But one thing that I asked God was, please restore my innocence. It immediately took away my innocence. My innocence as in, to love, to be happy, to be that, cool wife that's understanding, that can say, you know what, you've been out with a group of friends and I know you guys are going to try and drive home at 3 a.m. I would be much more comfortable if you just sleep at so-and-so's house so that you are safe, I was that cool wife, and it was not common in society for a couple to be that way. Again, so...
She will come and fetch you.
in her pajamas, in her onesie.
She will come and fetch you out to the tin. Cool wife.
Yes. So, I mean, a lot of his friends used to be in awe, and, but it's because of the foundation of that friendship, and we really had fun until things started not going right. So that, what you are saying to say, that abuse, that it really took away that innocence of just being free and not making a big fuss about the fact that, now I must behave like a wife, and now I must bark at him and stand at the door. And, we used to joke about stuff like that I don't stand at the door at 6 p.m. and start barking like Bobby. We used to laugh about that. So it really, really took away my innocence, that trust, that safety,
Because he is your protector, right? He's your man. You're the one that's supposed to look after me and make sure that I'm safe.
Exactly. It took away my softness. A lot of people know me as the Mbokoto, as the strong woman. Actually, I had to learn to be that way. I had to learn. I was telling my grandmother the other day that, certain people don't understand what it took for me to learn to speak loud and to speak with authority and, with my accents and mix languages and just be me. It took a lot because I was that very soft-spoken little princess who grew up.
St. John.
Yeah. Who grew up.
Hosanna.
Yes. Yeah. Very innocent, very oblivious to realities of life because I grew up so protected within that.
And he broke that, right?
He broke that. He really broke that. And it took a lot to repair that. It took a lot to just trust again and be safe again. And in fact, find that safety within yourself because you've never been forced to find it. Now you have to find it. Now you don't have a choice but to be strong. And you have to protect children as well on top of that and still wake up and look good and go to a boardroom and run things and perform and, perform really because most times we perform under those circumstances until something really kicks in. And that was my prayer to say, I need my innocence. I need to feel safe. How do I close with two eyes closed now? Because now I'm here, And as with my character and revolutionary background, I spoke out and it wasn't fashionable those days to speak out,
How long did it happen for until you then had that voice to speak out?
It happened. It would funny enough, it would happen every 6 months, which was very strange.
Yeah, it was like a 6-month cycle.
Yeah, it was a 6-month cycle, and I could see it coming, and it would be just a small fight about something very small, because he wants to leave on Friday afternoon and come back on Monday.
Yes.
And it started becoming that cycle to say, and now that I'm wiser, then I understood that the insecurity of not being able now to keep this marriage together at all costs, try to have another baby, and now it's not possible because there's medical issues now to be attended to on his side. He was now manifesting his insecurity as a man.
Yes.
I didn't understand
Taking
then.
out that frustration on you.
Yes, I didn't understand. And as nature would call for it, he would go find a younger one, find, a sexier one, find a tall one, find a short one to try and close that gap. And that's when, and then, of course, the abuse got worse now, emotional, verbal, economic,
Yeah.
At some point, I was telling my cousin the other day that I was so in love that I married an unemployed man. Mm. So I was also, part of that innocence is now having to step into your masculine energy now and be a provider. And we take it for granted as liberated, independent women that it actually does get exhausting at times where now, you have to be the man
Right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets tired of Mbokot once in a while. You know, you want to be a princess.
Yes, I think
Yes.
sometimes you just want to be a princess, especially
Yes.
when you're raised in that kind of a family structure where there's a mother, a father, there's a king. My grandfather had a chair at the head of the table, and my grandmother was the queen, and they were in love until the end. And then, in the family, you see those kind of love stories, and now you have to be the Mbogoto that holds the center together and in support of your life partner who wants to explore certain things, who's tired, who wants to take a break, who wants to. And all those things build up, then you realize that, okay, there was a serious fundamental childhood wound there and repeated cycle that was playing itself out. So every 6 months, then there would be an eruption and parents must get involved. We must have that family meeting. Ube makoti, wa apare tuku, o dule mole, ba omanye, mosadi wa itshoka, o itshwara ka bohaleng, Ha ona ntlo e saneleng. The
That is
narrative.
such the biggest load of bullshit ever, right? Because I've got daughters, right? I've got daughters. First of all, if anybody lays a hand on my child, they're not making it out the house,
Yeah.
right? But secondly, it's so unfortunate as part of our culture, right? We have to sit down and say that to women.
Yeah.
Because not in my world, right? My daughter is a princess. My daughter will be strong. She'll have a voice. She'll have an opinion. It's either you step up or you get out.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? Because a lot of women on Israel are 6 feet.
Yes. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there should be strength and conviction enough in families to be able to say, stop your nonsense, or, my darling, walk out.
Yeah.
I understand. What are you preserving at the cost of your own life?
That's not the generation that I came from. The generation that I came from is batho ba tla reng o hlala. O ngwana kerekeng. So many young people look up to you.
Yes. You're breaking the family unit.
Yes. Pray about it. You are being tested. The devil.
Well, the devil will shapa ka di-face,
I'm like, hey, man.
Devil will shapa ka di-face.
Yeah, And then it gets to a point now where you have to be the villain and go against everybody and declare to say, look, this has got to come to an end.
When you decided to start speaking publicly about it, what happened? How did that then impact and change your relationship at home?
Look, it really started with the families, most, as I've just stated, with the families. And unfortunately, some women come from that generation. And still today, you find women who are agents of patriarchy that will then tell Mokanyana, hore, hey, wa phapha, o moshape, mosadi wa lukisiwa.
Ha sa mamele, o mo kenya
Ha sa
tseleng.
mamele, o mo kenya tseleng. So, those are some of the, I would say, words that I've had to consciously heal from and overcome, and also be very intentional about making sure that I don't pass that on to my daughter, to my brother's girlfriend. I don't become that sister-in-law, that rakadi, that, I'm very intentional about being very soft with boys and girls. And
How did you manage to eventually leave?
look,
Couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't easy, especially because of how the cycle normally goes, that, there'll be forgiveness, unale black ainyana mole, and you are presented with a bunch of flowers and a gift and treated lavishly in front of those that are willing to watch. And, oh, shame, he loves her though, and then Luena, you forgive. So it wasn't easy. And it got now to a point where it becomes very awkward when it's just the two of us and my daughter is visiting my mom, because then what do we talk about? Maybe I want to cry, maybe I want to ask you why.
Yes, how could you do this to me?
Yeah, and then the expectation is, but we spoke about that, and, and you find a way to just
Keep it moving.
keep it moving.
Yeah.
And now, at a point where I think the decision had to be made, I remember I was flying in from New York, if I'm not mistaken, or from New Orleans. I was coming from New Orleans, and my domestic worker comes and sits there. I'm busy getting ready for work, and she sits there and she says to me, "I'm sorry to have to tell you that while you were away, there was a party, and some girl was sleeping in your bedroom, and unfortunately your daughter saw. That's why I'm telling you, because she's probably going to tell you." And I was just traumatized about the thought of my daughter having seen that, even if she was small at the time, like how does
you don't do that to it. God,
how does another woman do that also? I always say to my age mates, let us make sure that we don't destroy another generation. Yes. Because then we're going backwards.
No, then we're stuffed. Then we're stuffed. I mean, we've got to, and probably this generation etlang needs it more than anything else, because right? It's either you come right or you'll get it right, So, and now we can't now do that. So we've got to be a lot more supportive, a lot more stronger in helping this generation, because
yeah. And there's just so much information out there as well that competes with your voice as a parent, with how you prefer to parent. Versus go next door, they allow 1, 2, 3. Why can't you allow 1, 2, 3? And not realizing also now you have to think about safety for the girl child in this day and age. Rona, I tell my daughter all the time, Rona neria go concerting ya Brenda Fassi, and would walk there
and walk
back in the early hours of the neria 6 to 6. And our parents never used to worry. They know, okay, we like I go mama, and she'll be back. So now we have to be a bit more stricter and a bit more gentle as well, and still also let them spread their wings and experience life as they should without being too protective. So it's a very interesting, tough balance, but we get it right if we communicate with our kids.
Yes.
Communication is I think, the most important thing in us raising a better, healthier generation.
So, Khumo, you now in the bedroom, Udutsile sisterle spanang, and she says to you, this happened. Would you say that was the moment that broke the camel's back, or that's it, I'm done?
Yes, that was it. I remember I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, "Yo, stressed, so." And I laughed and I said, "I'm getting a divorce." She was like, no. So she was now feeling bad.
I'm guessing your domestic was in Elimsutune.
Yeah. She was like, no, I was not saying please. No, please. And I said, I've just made the decision. And I made the decision for my health. Because now, that was now the days of before COVID, in early HIV. Yeah. So that was like the problem, the issue then.
If this is what's happening,
my decision was just health related. I've got a purpose to fulfill. I've got a long way to go. I've got a child to raise. And so I better have a body, to a healthy one for that matter. And I've been blessed with good health. I just couldn't imagine myself now having to struggle. I've lived with HIV positive people. I've lived with them. I know how brutal, it is. So that was just the decision to say, whoop, for the sake of my health. I loved my husband on the day that I made this decision. It took me a while to actually not love him, to want him here anymore. It was just that platonic love now for someone that was once special to you beyond that. But on the day that I made the decision, I was in love with him.
How did you take it?
He thought it's a joke because this is me. This is me. One of the things that I'm not a believer of sin. I'm not religious. I'm not a.
Yes.
I'm not on a high horse of holiness somewhere in an unreal world. I'm realistic
Yes.
about life and choices and free will and people being given their own free will to be what they want to be. You see.
Okay.
So I didn't I didn't see divorce as a sin, but I had to be faced with that to say, you know,
You're breaking the Lord's covenant.
yes, the covenant. And we'll talk about that covenant because it did catch up with me when he passed on. It really did catch up, and I understood the meaning of till death do us apart. So, but at the time, that was the least of my concerns, really, and also he didn't take it seriously because I hardly ever get angry and I don't do those kind of things. And our relationship was like that. We could sit down and talk out issues until 5 a.m. because my grandmother taught me, Hore, don't go to bed.
Yes, don't go to bed angry. Yes.
Until letsatsi le hlaba, and he loved that. We taught each other a lot. And that's one of the things that I imparted to say, we're going to sort it out. And my bedroom is not a courtroom. I used to say that, we must go away. So I had a work engagement at Mount Grace, beautiful Mount Grace. So we finished on the Friday. I invited him over for us to stay for the weekend to now talk about ending our marriage. And his first reaction, he just laughed because we had such a good weekend. He came through. I was still busy with work. When I was done the following day, then we had beautiful dinner, reminiscing. And I told him that I've made a decision and I want it to be as peaceful as possible and for us to try and protect our friendship for the sake of our daughter. So that was the speech. And he laughed. He laughed because I was so forgiving. I would defend him even when people say, "Ke morning, mang."
Yes.
My first reaction would be, "How dare you? Like, why is it any of your business?"
Yes.
Did I ask you? And I would go home and tell him, "Hore, wa bona mama, because
What are
I was that wife,
Yes.
yeah. So he just couldn't believe it because I would be forgiving. He would explain and then I would forgive and we move on and.
How did he pass away?
So he thought that it's one of those, let's put let bygones be bygones and tell him
we'll figure this out.
We'll figure this out.
And when you were done?
Yeah, I was done. I broke the news when we got home. I moved out of the bedroom, left him in the main bedroom. And soon thereafter, I traveled for about 3 weeks to give him a space to, find a place and all those kind of things. So, yeah, and then it got very tough after that because he just didn't want to accept it. In his head, until he passed on, I was his wife. And that was the end of it. And he passes on now, to your question. He passes on in 2021, January, we were told then that it was COVID. And it was still, I think, level 4, where we couldn't see the bodies of our loved ones.
Yes,
and there was all those restrictions.
Yes.
He went to ICU, and then he passed away, and it had to be that COVID regulation thing and very quickly. And so it just happened so quickly. So we were told that, it was COVID. At that time, we were told that it was COVID, and we learned that it may not have been COVID. There may have been foul play, allegedly, when an unsolicited witness approached me with some evidence that suggested that he may have
been killed.
Been poisoned, yes.
Wow, okay. So when he passes away, are you at peace? Because now the abuser, the person who almost took away your innocence, the person that caused you so much pain is no longer there? Or are you still crying for your husband that you love so much?
I was very conflicted. I'll be very honest with you. I was the first thing I thought about was my daughter. So the motherly instinct just quickly kicked in. Mm-hmm. The person that told me the news, a friend of mine, well, a common friend of ours, had seen it on Facebook. And he was responsible enough to say, hey, please, please, please. I've just read this on Facebook. I don't know if it's true. Wana ugai. And I was like, shucks, she's at home.
Yes.
She's got internet.
Yes.
You know, in this day and age of internet where funerals are announced on social media yes. before the family finds out. Oh. So there was it was that crisis mode now to say, I need to get to her as quickly as possible.
Where were you when?
I was driving to my cousin's house. Oh, so okay. I immediately told my cousin to say, hey, this has happened. She said, pick me up. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Yes. And I said, but I don't really know if it's true. Mm-hmm. And then then my sister called me. My sister was much closer to him then post the marriage. So she called me to say, hey, did you hear? And I said, yeah, someone just told me they read it on Facebook. Is it true? And she confirmed, as my sister was on the line, his sister was calling me as well to say, yo, my sister, this has just happened. So that, I think, besides my concern for my daughter, it then became reality to say, okay, I am the last wife seen, you know?
Yes.
And there is now that responsibility that I have to assume in support of my daughter, in also the beautiful relationship that I had with his family, even post-divorce. His father adored me until his last breath. In fact, I even got the privilege of talking to him before he took his last breath. He insisted they must look for me. He wants to talk to me. You know, so I had a very good relationship with his sister also before his passing, which later changed because of, we are known for that as Black families to fight about money when someone dies, especially with the in-laws. But I had a very good relationship with her, even beyond the divorce. Yes. And also with him, he had respect for me. You know, we may have had our differences and fights, public fights, and, issues, him stalking and being, obsessed. He wants his wife back. I don't want him back. And
yes.
In all of that, he really respected me. He could call me as a professional to ask for an opinion. And we would immediately tune into power couple mode and sort out a problem that's affecting the country because he was in public service as well.
Okay.
So we had worked together in the past. So he could call me to say, remember that project, remember that strategy, I've got this problem. How do I solve it? What do you think? Are you available? Can we have a cup of coffee? We were able to do those kind of things towards the end as we matured and grew older and healed from our wounds,
You say that, earlier you said that he was a very good cameraman.
Yeah. And he hated being called a cameraman. He was a photographer.
He was a photographer, yes. So he then, outside of just, being a photographer, he also worked for government at some point.
Yes.
What did he do?
So we met at the Department of Trade and Industry. Where
the DTI.
He actually recruited me as an intern.
Yes.
So we met there.
Let's talk.
Well, we were both workaholics, so, we spent just too much time at work. Yes. And we're a great team as well,
Okay.
Still very fond of everybody. Our team is still together. I'm still friends with people that we worked with. Our boss never stops talking about us, Oh. We're a great team. We're really a great team. We did amazing things for this country when we were at the DTI. And then he moved to NEF. When the
National Empowerment Fund.
Yes, he moved to the National Empowerment Fund from the DTI. Of course, there was always that close relationship between the DTI and the NEF because of the fact that NEF is an agency of DTI.
Okay.
So he moved there. I remember, when he was still going through a depression, when he was unemployed and business was not coming together and the marriage was strained as well. And I was growing, and he wasn't taking it well. I kind of snuck his CV over to the sisters at NEF to say, please, can we just headhunt him?
Yes.
And that's how he moved to the NEF. And he was brilliant, he was brilliant. So he got the call, he went to the interview, he got the job.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So you looked out for
no
him
one
as
ever
well.
found out. Yeah. So no one ever found out,
Yes.
and some of his friends still really respect me for those kind of things. For me, just is normal,
Guys. Just, you don't need medals for just being a good person.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We should stop that,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
We should stop that. And I say these things very cautiously and humbly. I was very pleased when you said this interview is just going to be human, because I've never really had this opportunity. I've had to be strong. I've had to fight facts, documents, back up your story, interviews, courtrooms. It's just been that journey, and protecting others.
We're still getting there. Go on. We're still in raw massage. No raw massage. We're still going there.
John Nawe, hot seat. So it was just that tension of just modern life, modern society that we all have to face at some point, that kind of took over, at some point. But I want to go back to, it's coming back to my mind now, back to, were you relieved or,
Yes. Were you relieved or were you sad? Or, what went through your mind when you found out that this love of your life is now gone?
Yeah. I've had this conversation with pastors that took me through the mourning and the humiliation and the attacks and the finger pointing and everything that happens, even in a normal marriage where the husband passes away under suspicious circumstances. Ke mako iti a kere,
Yes.
Yeah, o ne batla ditšhelete tsa hae.
Bolaile ngwana rona.
O bolaile ngwana rona. Hey, men never die from natural causes.
No, never.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ke bo Efa, le bo Delilah, that kicks in immediately.
Yes.
So after I then rushed back home to attend to my daughter, her first reaction was like, I'm just so angry that just as we thought we could face our issues, me and him, me now as a bit older and able to have my own conversations with him, he just sneaks out. That was just her first issue. She was like, I'm so upset. I was looking forward to that conversation with him. I had a lot to say. And now he's gone. And then the covenant hit me, It really, then all those bad memories kind of vanished as I was now counseling her and consoling her, comforting her, and reminding her of the good times, and which I did throughout the divorce. I really protected her, except for what I used to say to my friends, kids only get hurt by what they hear adults say in this kind of situation. They hear these negative things from other adults. If you know the kind of relationship that my daughter and her father had, you would understand why I needed to protect that. They used to call each other honey. That's how close they were.
Wow.
And so she was upset now that after all the turmoil, now he's gone. So I found myself now, those files in the back of the subconscious now coming quickly forward and replacing all the stuff.
All the negative
all
stuff.
the stuff that really doesn't matter. Death has a way of making us very sober-minded and to reflect on just life.
Yes. And to actually reflect on the important things, right?
Yeah.
The important things that actually mean everything.
The meaningful things that we cannot take on the other side. And it just gets so heavy. The spiritual world becomes now very tangible at that time, and you respect that spirit regardless. You know, as in our African culture, mufu a hlomphiwa, I get. And ka Setswana re re lefoko la moswi le agelwa lesaka.
Yes.
Now, me and my daughter had to really do that, to say, okay, let's go now. It's go time. This is what he instructed me. Remember the will. Remember this. Remember this is how we wanted to be better. So we moved straight into mourning. And I remember calling one of the pastors that were praying for me after having been to the family home to accompany my daughter. And I said to him, yeah, one day I will talk about the power of the covenant and the things that we say in that altar when we say till death do us apart, because now I'm torn apart. Like,
Yes.
I don't understand what's going on with me. And I was in a relationship at the time with somebody, and I said to the pastor, I now am going into repentance, because it has now just hit me that all this time I had not, there was no divorce in the spiritual. I was someone's wife. Actually, he was right for him to think and believe that I was his wife.
Yes.
And if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, even culturally, some people will tell you, Hore, ancestors don't recognize divorce. You know, even when we stand before a pastor, we don't say, till a piece of paper do us apart.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
until divorce. We don't say that.
Yes.
So it became so real for me to say, I never actually said that. I said, till death do us apart. Now here is death doing us apart. Now we are separate. And then I could feel that.
Yes. That bond has now
I
been
could
broken.
feel that something just left, and it was painful. What made it even more painful was being excluded from mourning him. Yes, for my daughter's sake, yes. However, I could feel that exclusion
from his family.
From his family, from everybody.
Because you divorced him.
Because I divorced him. So, o batlang o mo. Jwale ke eng ka ene? You know, the boyfriend in high, you know, those kind of things. And now my daughter was old enough, she was 16, and she would overhear those things and get even more angry to say, oh, wow, like, really?
Yeah.
Is that what we have to deal with? So we were not invited. Apparently there was an instruction for me and my daughter not to be invited to the memorial service that the employer had hosted at his place of employment. Our former boss kupa consent for me to read his speech. That's when I discovered that the memorial service is happening. And all his exes and alleged baby mamas were there, you know. And
oh, wow, it gets more interesting.
You know, so yeah. So he calls me, he's like, my dear, please ke kopa o shebe speech because I mentioned you. And he's again memories of how amazing we were as a team, how naughty we were, and
yes,
you know, how we had a DTI marketing division wedding, you know. And it was we were everybody's couple. So he was speaking about those things and just how good we were at what we were doing, and how to this day our legacy meets somewhere in those spaces. We did amazing work, really, even if I so say myself.
Yes.
You know, so
wow.
So he called me, he's like, Kikopobale speech because I'm gonna mention you. Anyway, Ukukai. I'm like, but what do you mean? He sends me the speech. I'm like, it's happening now. He's like, yeah. Can't they didn't. I'm like, no. Immediately something says to me, you know what? For the sake of my daughter's closure, we're going to have to gate crash that memorial service.
Yes.
You know, she needed the closure. So COVID days, we kind of gate crashed the online session. You know, someone sends us a link. We change my Zoom ID to her now so that they don't block because it's me. And we participate in the memorial service virtually. And Similarly, now the funeral days keep shifting, and we overhear things every time we are there. The tension gets heavy. Now, I don't know that the tension is the will, at the time.
Yes.
But my daughter overhears the uncle saying, the one time we're there, he overhears the uncle saying, "Yeah, Leona really, I'm sure if for Jitwe,
Oh.
And she's like,
black
she's
families.
a fighter.
You gotta love black families, man.
Same. Like, there's nothing new, really, And the only people that win in those situations are lawyers and banks.
Yes.
And we don't realize that. And I speak very openly about this. And it's seen as me being controversial and, seeking attention. But I confront those issues to say, when these things happen, lawyers and banks benefit. And they love it, and they will keep it going as long as possible. So with that tension now, the funeral dates move. We don't know why, and now she can't go to the funeral. COVID regulations. If you go to a funeral, you can't come to school for 14 days.
Yes,
all that jazz.
That stuff, yes.
We arrange with our former colleagues to watch the funeral virtually at the office. We gather there on the day of the funeral at the office with my daughter. We watch, and that's how she gets, her closure somehow. There's women calling me and they want me to sell my house because it's his house and we must share the money. And then it starts, Then it starts.
Would you
then
say
people want to see the will. Yeah. Then people want to see the will and,
So where was the will?
I had the original copy of the will.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of his dates with my daughter, he presented her with an envelope written Old Mutual on it and said, "Please ask your mother to keep this safely." And I'm trying to say to him, "Please, can you take your important documents,
Yes, how?
Yes. Please change your postal address. And then he was like, "Nope, my things are safe with you, So he gave my daughter this envelope. I put it away on some, "No, please, I'm trying to have you collect your qualifications and certificate." Now, it didn't happen. I put it safely in his things. And he tells me, "Okay, I give you Manuela an envelope, which is a copy of our joint will. I want you to keep that because I don't intend on changing it." Which then says whoever dies first, the other gets 100% of everything, pension and the estate.
Yes.
So that's really where the trouble started to say, "No, no, you were divorced, and actually you had an antenuptial agreement. Oh, let's see the divorce decree." And I was turned upside down. I was scrutinized. Actually, you don't need this money. You sit on 16 directorships. I've never even had 16 companies, but those things came out in court to say. I was like, "Really? I receive?" Yes.
How is this me?
No,
16 directorships.
Look at me. I haven't done bad at all,
Yes.
So those are the things that were ultimately said to say, actually, you don't need this money. So I talk about this in the context of banks, that they would rather have 9 alleged mothers come forward with their children that are allegedly children of a deceased man, share 10 million rands than have one black woman inherit and become an instant millionaire in their personal capacity. Wow. You see, that's one thing that's the one conversation that I'm relentless about when it comes to banks. And I send them emails, I talk to them about it, and I hold them accountable in the right forums to say, what is this nonsense that always happens amongst black families? That company, loser kaofela, Then it gets to that point to say, okay, are singing here, company ra iluza kaofela. The company ra lapa kaofela. And of course, then I'm already in the middle of fighting a crime syndicate that tried to hijack my house on 4 occasions. And now it escalates with his passing now. The pressure now mounts to say, "Rekisa ntlo eo."
Now it's getting hot.
Yes.
Right. So you are, on the one hand, you're fighting
Yeah.
this issue at the will, right? Is it just the family that's fighting you around this issue at will?
No, it's his family, it's his employer, the National Empowerment Fund, and it is...
What are they fighting for?
Look, it's a question that is still yet to be answered, because they are the ones that gave the instruction to say, these are the children that must inherit. Of course, yes, my daughter ultimately at the tail end was included after, there was an attempt for her to be excluded by just ignoring our existence, which then made sense why we could not show our faces at the memorial service. So that nobody remembers we exist and nobody remembers she exists,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
I see it now, yes.
Yes, and I'm the villain that doesn't show up. And she didn't even come to his funeral, And part of my not going to the funeral, besides the COVID issue, was the shiftiness and the safety elements now that started to become real for me again, having been through a similar situation as the will on the house site. I now knew her, okay, so this thing, kopana somewhere, Now I'm being put under pressure to sell his house and share the money from his house. The employer is forwarding children that I don't know about, that the family doesn't know about, and saying these are his children.
Employer Ikenaka. Why is the employer getting involved?
The employer was very involved, was extremely involved.
So this is the National Empowerment Fund?
Yes.
Was he a director?
No, he wasn't a director, so he was an employee.
Yes.
And he sat on a few directorships, NEF would fund the company and they would have someone represent them.
Yeah, have a proxy there to represent the interest and their money.
So those are some of the things that I had to process from an estate perspective, some of which he held in his own personal capacity. And we then later learned that there was just a whole lot of things that were not done right at the NEF. Throughout the investigations, but mainly is that they were in the forefront. They made a decision to exclude me completely from inheriting as a result of the will and the nomination form for the pension fund. There's been technical debates about Section 37C of the Pension Fund Act allows trustees to make whatever decision and override the decision of the deceased. Granted, but I cannot be excluded completely. If there's other beneficiaries that get identified as factual beneficiaries, then we can all be put in the same pot and, the benefits be distributed fairly, right? And equitably.
So the National Empowerment Fund wanted to exclude you from his pension fund, which he gets from the NEF.
Yes.
Didn't want to pay out to you.
Yes.
Why?
The reason that they gave to court ultimately, and I mean they, because it was initially the NEF that took that decision, and the pension fund administrator, which is Alexander Forbes, said, look, we're just a service provider. We take instruction from our client, who is NEF. So NEF has got something called the National Empowerment Fund Trust Fund that is run by NEF inside Alexander Forbes, right? With some of the employees having been seconded to run it from NEF HR and legal department, right? So the ultimate decision is the client, who's the CEO of the NEF, together with the board of the NEF.
The Temke Natim Tato's wife.
Yes, it was PDCW. Yes.
Okay.
So I attempted on many occasions to speak to her, right? First, because immediately after Emmanuel was buried, I got a call from the NEF's marketing division, Babatladi Password, his Gmail and his Amweb account. And I was like, but why? Those are assets of the estate. And they said, no, we want those passwords because he had used his Gmail to register the NEF Twitter account. I said to them, well, I can help you to talk to Twitter so that they can assist you. Because the minute I give you his password, this is his personal email.
Yes, you're going to get everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I can't. Yes, I have it, but I can't. So let me rather help you with
Twitter and
directly with Twitter, and there's emails to that effect. And then the next thing, they involve the entire legal department, and their external law firm sends me a letter to say, if you want to sue us, sue us. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can make a plan, Hey, Bo, it's like that bully that comes to you during break and say, how can you cross a move? And I was like, okay, cross it a hair. Okay. Yeah.
Cross. Now what?
That's me.
Yes.
That's me. I'm like, great.
Okay.
Oh, you now want to play with my human rights. Let's do this,
Okay.
So it got very confusing now to say, what are we fighting for exactly? Then there's the legal department. Now I'm chasing HR to try and have Manuela included because I wasn't so sure what was in his nomination form.
For pension fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know the estate, I've got the will,
yes.
But the nomination form is with the employer.
Yes.
The employer themselves tell me that I am 100% nominated beneficiary, right? And now everybody else claim on the basis of him being the biological father of the children. They didn't say, no, I used to work for him and he was paying for my daughter's school fees. Or he was so generous,
yes.
He used to take care of everybody. Yes. And, he put my son in his medical aid. I've taken children of my domestic workers to school. I've paid for their health. So does that therefore mean that when I die, they can all come in and push my kids aside? No. If we are saying Section 37C of the Pension Fund Act gives the trustees discretion, how do you then have one letter of the law that violates human rights?
Yes.
That's a direct violation of human rights. And these are, I've addressed the legal fraternity at the constitutional courts in this regard based on my experience. 80% of them agree with what I'm saying. Especially when there's issues of conflicts of interest.
Yes.
I believe I was just excluded because of hatred.
But hater for ing,
they just hated me because so I'm like, so you are also now a secondary perpetrator of GBV. You are punishing me for surviving GBV.
Gender-based violence, now you want to financially exclude me.
Now I must be financially excluded.
Get NDF doing all of this,
All of that. Those are some of the reasons they forward to the administrator to say, not her. Do whatever it takes, not her. And now people are doing paperwork to make sure that I'm excluded. Not only that...
Well, fabricating paperwork, right? Because this is fraud. They're fabricating paperwork. Let's get that right.
Well, we didn't get a chance to air out our defense in the civil court because there were technical errors that my team supposedly caused for the matter not to be aired out. But the judgment, much as it sets aside my application to say, why was I excluded? I was fighting exclusion. But word on the street, word on the street was that she is so greedy. And, she wants Bana ba Emmanuel to be excluded. So it was that narrative now that was making rounds and within the NEF amongst these women. And all this time from day one, I said to his family, I know the kind of man that I was married to. Because of the medical facts, let's make sure because all of them are saying they are claiming on the basis of biology. I myself went out of my way to inform the family that there is another child that came before my daughter when he was still in university. They didn't even know about him. They were as surprised as I was. The sister would send me emails to say, Yanong okay man Khumo omong hape. You know,
Papa was a rolling stone.
And then the list kept on growing. I think at some point we were like 9 kids. But the minute now I pushed back and started questioning my exclusion, and for me, the issue of inheritance is very, it's generational wealth.
Yes.
It was intended to protect wealth in the family. So, okay, I'm going to die anyway one day. So I better leave the next generation better. That's the
idea. That's what we try to do.
That's the idea. So it's very deep for me, the issue of inheritance. I don't care even if they said we'll only give you 2%. It was the principle of allowing the wishes of the deceased to be fulfilled, firstly. And secondly, doing justice. It's justice. What he did what was just. He did what was right. He never remarried. If I decide anyway to leave everything that I've worked for to SPCA, is my family going to go after SPCA?
No.
Really? It's his last will.
It's his last will and testament. That's his last will. The actual word means that this is
exactly
me. This is what I want.
This is what I want.
Yes.
And he was a very educated man. And we cannot now say, hi, that will was so old. That nomination form was so old. I've worked for government. The PFMA at some point in the HR space forces you, before you get a bonus as a government employee, on your birthday month to update your beneficiaries, right? They call them gatekeepers in HR. Yeah. So if you haven't done certain things like medicals, updating of your it then delays you getting your bonus, and then your team members will be on the case. Hooray! It's because all of us are affected.
Yes.
So every year he had an opportunity to update his beneficiaries. He did it.
And
it's compulsory. He kept it the same, and he made sure that I know that he is not changing it. And he made sure that the people that were able to see him or speak to him, rather, when he was in ICU, know that he has a will and it's sorted, and the person who has it is responsible and will do the right thing. So the right thing for me was knowing the man that I was married to.
Yes.
Let them all come forward. In fact, my first instance was, I don't even want to know who ran. Now I'm offered 2,000 rands a month. If he was giving you 2,000 rands a month for one, just show me the proof, give me the birth certificate, let me do what I need to do, because I'm legally bound now to.
Yes.
And I wanted to also clean up his legacy for the sake of my daughter, who loves her privacy. She's very private. So I wanted to protect that, because there was these threats constantly to humiliate me, to expose me. I've been investigated for fraud. My bank accounts there's been just so much snooping to exclude me, So this is the first opportunity that I get to tell my story. Thank you.
Wow. Khumo, now, what's happening with the house? You're saying that you're now fighting people this is the house that you and him used to live in.
So this is a house that we lived in towards the tail end of our marriage, and of course the separation, and he moved out. So the assumption, and I'm calling it an assumption because that's just really what it is. It wasn't facts. The assumption was that it was his house that I was refusing to let go of, and he had just let it be for the sake of his daughter. And so therefore now he's dead, and that's an asset of the estate. I mean, I've never seen a pension fund deal with assets, but in the resolution of the pension that I get now from Alexander Forbes, they mention that there is a property worth so much. And I'm like, which property are we talking about? Because when we divorced, the divorce decree was very clear. about the ownership of that property, which was me. So before that, there had been attempts for this house to be hijacked, right? Some of the attempts.
Kumo, just wait. How did there been attempts to get this house hijacked? How? What? Who?
The first time I went to a police station and I said, there is a syndicate trying to hijack my house, they laughed at me. They said, what is a syndicate? And what do you mean hijack? How do you hijack a fixed property? Koloi maybe, you know? This one is crazy. And that was also one of the narratives out there. I'm not okay upstairs.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So there had been so many incidents really and attempts from different angles where I was employed by Eskom. The house was financed by Eskom Finance Company as part of my perks. So he was registered as a spouse on the property at some point in the loan agreement.
Yes.
There was a default, there was a payment arrangement made then, and which was fulfilled. The account was brought to order.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the issue, really the fundamental issue, was the interest rate hiking. That's one of the things that we must talk about as to why do Black people get charged more interest. And, you know, it can be proven. We can look at the issue and really go deep into it.
No, in fact, I think there was a competition commission thing there around banks that they charge people, Black people, high interest rates.
Correct. And
I
mean,
there's something like that.
There's also a recent class action on hijacking of properties by banks. So in any case, the issue was the increase of the installment. The interest was just ridiculous. I mean, I was in a 2.6 million rands house and paying for an equivalent of a 10 million rands house because it just kept going up. And I didn't realize that it was now trying to push it to a point where it can be hijacked.
Yes.
So there was the main one. There were other issues surrounding my ex-husband using the house as surety and some people trying to attach it. Then there was another attempt. There was just an obsession about that house. Actually, I must do a movie about that house.
Yes.
And another former business partner tried to do the same thing from the same circle, and it didn't succeed. Then this one now succeeded ultimately, where there was an alleged auction, right, of the house. And on investigation, we proved that the auction never happened. And there's a forensic report that unpacks what really happened there. Because even if there was a default that had happened in 2016, it could not have given rise to an eviction in 2017 when there were payments that were happening between...
And you've got this proof. You can show
There's payments that happened between 2016 and 2017. There was queries and emails as to why is the interest behaving like this? And, you know, this house is almost paid up. Can we wrap it up? And because I would throw money in whenever I get a bit of money from the business side after I left Eskom. So now we are sitting with a situation now where this house is now always being contested in one way or the other. It's
like, a pain. What's going on? Yeah.
It's a pain. Now I need to find out what's happening. I get a private investigator. Oh, well, first I get told that I'm crazy, I'm hallucinating. Then I
Yes, because who hijacks the house?
Who hijacks the house? Yes. Then I check myself into Dr. Rangaka's rooms at Sticks Morewa, and I tell him, Doctor, apparently I need help, and please check if my mind is still operating okay, because Lina, I'm just like, this is a movie.
You're even questioning yourself now.
I'm questioning myself. Yes, you know?
Yes.
So he gives me a clean bill of health, and we complete our sessions, and he prescribes a private investigator. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, what you are experiencing, my dear, is a high-level crime. You need to figure out what's happening. You need to just be strong and face this. This is now a psychiatrist advising me. That's how I met my private investigator. He was a prescription.
She was a prescription, clearly private investigator. It doesn't get wilder than this.
Yes. So I'm friends
So now
with
you
my
get a
peer
private
now.
investigator.
Now I get a private investigator.
What
He
happens?
investigates, he checks what's happening, and he finds forged documents where now the deceased is now the primary owner of the house. That's now the second story. The first story is the syndicate bought the house at an auction, right? Now must get out. The second story now is no, but the syndicate bought the house from the deceased, and indeed there's sketchy records of that found on the City of Joburg records where he becomes now. You can see me buying the house, right? And then you don't see me selling it on the system. You see him now. There's not me selling it to him and him selling it on to the Chinaman.
Syndicate, yes. Okay, China.
Hey. Hey. So yeah.
Okay.
So the company is called SW Properties. It is owned, was, because it has now since changed hands. It was owned then by a gentleman called Mr. George Wong Yang, who's associated with Mr. Chen. So I get now to face this. Now, when I go to the police, firstly, I go to the police with a private investigator's report as my A1 statement. I don't go there guessing.
Yes. You go.
I know what's happening.
Yes.
Here's a private investigator's summary report. This is how we have undertaken our investigation. This is how we have found
how the syndicate is operating.
This is now how Emmanuel gets involved as the signatory who now transfers the house to SW Properties. Now, interesting to note that SW Properties, George is my neighbor. So George's family is around that block, around my house, the Chinaman.
Okay, yes.
Look, we find that he had acquired a whole lot of houses around the same time. At the time that I got my report from the PI, it had been 40 houses. And it increased later. And I mean, we all know what's been happening in the city of Joburg with property hijacking of buildings. Now, recently, these buildings are catching fire. For whatever reason, we don't want to, assume. So it's a whole lot of properties in these areas. So SW Properties, George Wong Yang suddenly acquires a whole lot of properties. He's been profiled by organized crime. When I now started pushing to find out, how do we allow this to happen in this country? If Madlanga goes to City of Joburg, then these issues will come up in the municipality.
Yes.
Issues of water, in the municipality, they're very interlinked. But on the house hijacking, on the property hijacking, you can Google it. It's public. It happens every day.
Yes.
And luckily now, a lot of women are starting to fight and get those houses back. But I realized that the problem was bigger than me. Okay. But now bringing it back home, in my private investigator's report, then the deceased is the alleged seller and who did not have power of attorney from me, who did not have the right to ownership after divorce. The divorce settlement was very clear in terms of that. And
so fraud there. That's fraud
because now this case has gone back and forth so many times, and hectic political interference in this case because of the people that were being protected, the politicians that were being protected in there, which has now have since come to the surface. The dockets had gone missing so many times. I found myself.
So Khumo just drops bombs here and then wants us to just move along and, it's okay. How work are the hectic politicians? Who are the people that and I think you're saying it's already public knowledge at the Matlanga Commission. So which politicians are named in this? In this?
Let me correct you again. City of Joburg, I don't follow Matlanga Commission religiously, but the focus has been on the
Ekurhuleni
drug cartel and
drug cartel.
Ekurhuleni.
Yes.
Right. If we were to look in the justice cluster, if now we were to look at City of Johannesburg, which we should, because some of cases like my case are high-profile cases that have reached the likes of the Hawks at a national level. My case was at some point it still is, because it's not resolved, a special project in the Provincial Commissioner's Office. It's handled by major generals. Crime intelligence is involved. It has been declared a syndicate. So why are we not looking at that? What are the limits? I try just to protect myself also to consume these bad news in small bites. I don't follow it religiously. I just grab the highlights here and there as a normal citizen to keep abreast of things. But we need to look into the City of Joburg as soon as possible, because the rot there is bigger than what we are seeing in Ekurhuleni. The syndicate operates in a very consistent fashion. They hijack properties. They turn them into brothels. I mean, these things are in my dockets and court files. Turns them into brothels, and children are trafficked in those homes. There's videos to those effect. I've come across in my fight, I've come across an NGO called Brave to Love Foundation. They deal with human trafficking globally. They're based in Pretoria. So they've been very supportive and helpful, especially from a forensic perspective, to help me make sense of what was happening and why the heat and the political interference on my case was so big, because I happened to be one of very few at the time to really penetrate and push and navigate corruption and get this case to be attended at a high level, because it was suppressed at some point. Dockets is missing. Open it again. It's missing again. Open it again.
Yeah, so dockets are going missing here in
NPA.
At the NPA.
Dockets go missing at the NPA. Files go missing in the civil court, in the South Gauteng High Court. I mean, how does a court file, how do we as South Africans accept that we can get a letter from the Archives Department of a high court saying, sorry, ma'am, your file is missing? When we know, I'm a layman, I only know the law from my own personal experience. But from what I know, court files cannot leave the court building. So now, sitting with a letter like that on a letterhead of the High Court saying your files are missing because now I'm on the verge of this syndicate being prosecuted for fraud and for trying to hijack my house. Then suddenly these court files go missing because the NPA wants to see what's in the civil case so that they can corroborate some of the evidence that I've presented on this side. Mind you, they never even bothered to investigate. Few 202 statements here and there, 205s that were never followed up, and closed case. And then these guys come again, new evidence comes forward. I have to open another case and we start again. So there was the journey prior to Emmanuel passing on. There had been 4 attempts that then brought me to a realization and understanding, having worked with other organizations like Brave to Love, to say, fraud happened here. The process leading up to the alleged auction was not even followed. So the process leading up to the alleged auction was not followed. There's facts that the forensic investigators have now gone to check to say, here, the process was not followed. The judge in the civil court did also say, put this eviction thing at bay. Let us investigate why these acts were violated. These things don't happen. You can't do this in this country. even if the eviction was legal, they would have had to find alternative accommodation for us. The law is very specific in that regard,
Yes,
especially
yes.
about women.
Forced removal and yes.
Exactly. So none of those things were followed. We were just thrown into the street on numerous occasions, you know. There's videos and photographs to that effect.
So who's throwing you out in the street?
Well, the last incident where we now had to throw in the towel for the sake of our living was the public order police. I had 100.
Public order police.
Yes, now this is post Emmanuel's death now,
Yes.
where the pressure increases to say, we want this house, you know. And it's now the neighbor, the Chinaman, and then the alleged mothers of the deceased children saying, sell the house. Either way, the house must go, you know. So there was that pressure. And soon after his passing, then which was June 2022, the public order police discerned on a woman. All right, Mama. Let's celebrate the monate hai. Nizophinde nibuye la. Nizogada babuyiselayo. A woman, unarmed woman, with a 6-year-old boy. Luckily, my daughter was at school on that day. And I was with my son.
Public order police to come and evict you.
We counted 100 plus. They discerned, literally, it was like apartheid days. With an Inyala, it was apartheid days where, you know, the apartheid
At whose
police.
command? At whose command? Kimang that gave the instruction.
At the time, the minister was former Minister Pekitele.
Yes.
But of course, because the case has been going on and off, it also was attended to. My lawyers actually went to present and did a PowerPoint presentation with forensic evidence to Minister Senzo Mkhunu to say, this has to be attended, you know. Why is there no prosecution? Why are the police playing ping pong when they're supposed to arrest? So he also was involved and informed.
So Senzo Mkhunu, he didn't do anything about that.
He didn't do anything about that.
The syndicate that's operating.
The syndicate, yeah, that's operating in the city of Joburg, hijacking properties in suburbs and mainly targeting women-headed households. So then the station commander told me the following day I went to confront him. He told me that because I was like, that was an operation, you know?
Yes.
With the little security cluster knowledge that I know, there was an operation. There was a tactical operation. There were different departments involved. There was Metro Police. There was Hawks. There were, pop guys that show up in those had heads, masks, bulletproof.
Technical guys, technical unit, technical intervention unit.
Combat unit with an Inyala there with rubber bullets and hose pipe and...
For you, we're not dangerous woman.
Very...
and 6-year-old child.
Actually, that's what I'm calling, that woman is dangerous. So, yeah.
100 police.
Yes.
For when
Exactly.
Who authorized that?
Now, they came to assist, I want to now spell this out. They came to assist a syndicate, to protect, in their own ways, they came to protect the syndicate to illegally evict us. So they came to help a syndicate to hijack a house. Right. So all those state resources, all that planning. So the next day when we asked the station commander, who was the commander on the day, who brought other neighboring police stations and kennels and, and they were taking whatever they wanted to take, putting them in police vans and, stealing and roaming around the house and, he then said he's sorry, he was misled.
Misled by who?
He was lied to. He was hanging his head in shame. I asked for permission to record that meeting, and I recorded that meeting. And I said, I'm here to talk to you as a father. If I was your daughter and someone like you misused state resources to do what you guys did yesterday, what would you say to me? He said, I'm sorry. I was misled. I was lied to. By who? He says Brigadier Singh from Santon Police Station is the one who authorized it. I'm like, no. The tactical, this was a provincial operation at province. These people came from Pop province, right? Mm-hmm. Who there authorized this thing? He never disclosed. And he threw around a lot of names that have since disappeared quietly somewhere in the background. And he then said, basically, even the operation was not legal, these guys were on the way to a public riot in Kempton Park.
so they planned, just pass by your house quickly. Just,
so they planned it in such a way that on the day they can start at my house, ruffle my feathers, probably shoot to kill. Apparently, that was an instruction that was given to say she's going to try and resist and call lawyers and security and the community and that. Shoot to kill. So there was a body bag waiting for me there. I was not supposed to live to tell the story on the day. I've since had police informers that would come to me and assist me to stay safe and to make sense of the whole thing. So I'm talking things that I can put evidence on the table and say this happened and back up my story, So they've literally not been able to answer as to why they deployed all those state resources, except now the confession to say, Nebaya Kempton Park ebe bafeta quickly. And but there was an instruction to feta quickly, because they all stopped by there and they spend a lot of time there. I mean, they were there for at least about 4 hours. And having tried that before, I quickly ran to court and then I got an interdict to stop it before they could finish. So they knew that this time around they needed more manpower and they needed to move quickly. And the intimidation had to be in such a way that I just break down and,
Did you give up your house at that time?
I did, because some of the female cops would say to me, please, we beg you, today is not the day for you to fight. Take your valuables and leave, because otherwise,
So have you subsequently lost that house now?
Look, not technically. I take breaks in between.
Yes.
We are now at a point where I've been asked to draft a settlement agreement for the house to be handed back to me and for the damages to be settled. I've sent that to Mr. George Ongyang. I've received text messages from high-ranking politicians with an attempt to try and get that settled as quickly as possible.
High-ranking politicians, right? So then this must be in some way politically motivated. There's some politician that is involved in this.
Seemingly, that was also the pressure, because at the time that
and this politician obviously works Lima China Anna.
Yes.
Okay.
So at the time that a lot of these houses were hijacked in the city of Joburg, the particular politician whom I cannot name at this stage, I will name him at some point, maybe during this interview. He was the MEC of housing in 2016. So when I confronted the Premier's office at the time, the late Mayor Jeff Makubo, and I said, this is the situation. And the crime scene, as per the public protector and the forensic evidence, is the city of Joburg. The transfer happened, vice versa. And there was a title deed issued. There were duplicate accounts and follow the money. There were 2 million rands refunds from the city, the revenue department, just a lot of shenanigans that happened. There's documentation to that effect in terms of what happened and how did it happen at the city of Joburg. He then said to me, go and speak to the MEC of housing. He's the one who can tell you what happened. Speak to the MEC of infrastructure. So it was somehow political. I'm still today trying to figure out, why was I targeted? Why was I gang stalked so much? And the hate crimes that I experienced also from all angles. And I consider this one group of bullies, really, that had too many toys, i.e., state resources to play with to rattle a strong woman who was refusing to allow certain things, from domestic violence to corruption to everything that I saw and experienced and witnessed fighting for justice. So it was just one group of people, even these ladies that come forward now to try and claim as in now in their state and the pension fund. They happen to be part of that circle that was trying to silence me. So they did a lot trying to silence me. And I only realized much later that, it was actually not personal. I happened to now push through and expose a house hijacking syndicate in Gauteng. And they just happened to touch the wrong house, actually, which was very convenient because then SW Properties had a relationship with my late husband as his former neighbor. They had a relationship also with the NEF, being a funding agency. Remember, at some point, the Chinese were declared BEE and they could access finance for buildings, all those buildings along Rivonia Road. Some of those businesses that are Chinese owned, they, just like any other BEE of the days, they would go and apply for funding. So that was now the relationship that started to make sense.
So, but what I'm trying to also figure out, Khumo, is that, okay, you eventually didn't lose your house. You still have your house.
No.
It's gone.
I moved out of the house.
Yes.
I've been through the civil courts. I've been through the criminal courts. The perpetrators need to be prosecuted, and that is not happening. I've even asked for a private prosecution certificate and the NPA, because they were at some point reluctant to prosecute. And they would tell me to my face to say, but you know who's implicated. We are scared. And the guys at GFIS would tell us at SAPS to say, we were threatened yesterday by the Hawks. They came to do 1, 2, 3. We are prohibited from releasing the forensic report, declaring that a fraud has happened here. A house was hijacked. So the house has been watched by crime intelligence for some time. I don't know if they're still watching it now, because at some point I had to prioritize my safety and that of my kids. So they put drones there. They were investigating. The case was moving with speed and they were ready to arrest. In fact, the last thing that was supposed to happen when they went quiet on me was the location inspection. I was supposed to go there with them so that we can clear the scene, so that the arrest can happen, and then I take the house back. So that's where we are. And then Mr. Mkhwanazi, our favorite cop in South Africa.
Yes, our top cop.
Him. Oh,
Robocop Warun.
Jer, our Robocop, set the scene now for South Africans to understand what really is happening. If you can now look at it just from property hijacking perspective, forget the pensions and all. If you just look at, forget the economic side. Well, it's also economic. If you look at this from a social perspective, from a humanitarian perspective, how many kids have been displaced by this act? So currently the house is vacant. Every now and then there's people that go in and out there. Obviously now it's too exposed. Even the neighbors are constantly complaining to say, doesn't this investigation end? We don't have our privacy anymore. I go there to fetch mail every now and then. So it's a crime scene. It's a ghost house. Sometimes there's Chinese people that go there for a big meeting. Politicians have been seen going in and out of there. And there's illegal activities, basically, that are happening there. But there's no one who really lives there because of the spotlight on the property.
So, Khumo, you then go to the police or you go to the municipality and they say to you, you know who's involved. we can't do anything. Tell me about that. Who's that person?
Look, currently, as I think about as early as last month, 2026,
Yes.
I've received text messages from the current deputy president. Yes. So he was asking me to go and have a meeting with the MD of Chancellor House, and with the intention of us discussing settlement of the house matter, and secondly, release of my funds. That was the exchange of communication between me and him. I did go to see the MD of Chancellor House, and reluctantly so, because remember, right now, throughout all of this, for the last 3 years since we've been going to court, we've been living from one guest house to the next, living with relatives, on the run, basically. So I've got...
If you're on the run, is somebody trying to kill you?
Yes. So there's been attempted hits on my life. I've been poisoned twice, and I've had... I've had...
Wow.
I've had hitmen. Look, if there's one thing that this whole thing has done that is positive, was to strengthen my faith and make me realize that there is a force out there that protects the chosen ones that have discerned in this lifetime to just clean up, really, It's
So
not something I would have...
You've been poisoned twice?
Yes, I've been poisoned twice. And
where? How? What happened?
Long story short, let me come back now to the hitmen.
Yes.
I've had confessions from hitmen that would call me to say, I know you are on the way to SAPS head office in Parktown, and my name is so-and-so, my name is Bra Stanley, Brigadier. I've had a photo of you on my desk for 4 months. Remember this photo, you even do the photo shoot, guy. And I haven't been able to execute my mandate. Oh, really? And I'm with my driver in the car, and I put this on loudspeaker. So I'm like, help me listen, because Ria, SAPS, and you must help me to explain, because these things, thank God for technology. We can record, we can screenshot, we can take videos and photos. Otherwise, the narrative of women like us, and there's a lot of us now that are speaking out, that narrative of us being unstable is defeated by evidence.
Yes.
So he tells me to say, I can't do it. You're a good person. I've been following you for 4 months. I've seen the good work that you do, that you don't even show. I know what's been done to you, how you've been financially suffocated, how taps are being closed, and fraud and all those things to make sure that you can't defend yourself. I'm telling you, because they will realize that I didn't do it. The stakes are up now. The bag on the table is becoming bigger and bigger, because you have put so much pressure, and you are waking up so many people, and you're giving women courage to fight and speak out about these things. So I'm telling you, because when they realize that I'm not doing my job, which is to kill you, they will find someone else who's willing to do it. I'm not doing it. He told me straight up. We arrived at SAPS. I told General Khumalo, I gave him the contact details to say, General, on my way to you, Brigadier, whoever, Bra Stanley called me and said this. Here are his numbers. Please call me. I suspect he's in your building, because he knew I'm coming here, You
win.
And he said, okay, leave it. And they knew who it is. They were like, shucks. And they were panicking about my safety. But also, I appreciate the fact that he was able to be honest with me, General Khumalo, and say, I cannot put you in witness protection, because the people in charge of witness protection are the people you have issues with. So whatever that you've been doing, you are better off living in guest houses and with relatives and in apartment for 2 months. And then the next thing, we've got to go, because now everybody's affected, because there's always security issues at the gate. And neighbors are like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
So you're literally living on the run here.
That's really pretty much what's been happening for the last 3 years. I've lost count of how many guest houses we've lived in, how much we've spent, and to a point of even running out of funds and depending on people that I've helped before and associates and friends and family members to keep going. And that's what I'm saying, that one thing that this thing has taught me and has done is to give me great faith to know that tomorrow, I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I don't have to, and I believe also that's why I'm still alive today. It's just God, to be quite honest, with everything that we have been through. And the ability to heal, actually, and sit here and talk to you without cry. I was worried about that. That if I get emotional, I'll spend 2 hours here sobbing.
So on the one hand, Bawa Gabi to try and get rid of you. You get an SMS or a text from the deputy president of this country. How fast is your heart beating at that time? Is this someone that you know?
Very fast. Very fast. It's someone that I know. It's someone that I've worked with.
Mm-hmm. You've worked with the deputy president before?
Yes, I've worked with him before when I was still in the ANC. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why I left the ANC and closed the chapter on politics completely was for my safety, because I realized that the people that I consider to be my family and my brothers are the ones that were, in fact, at the center of this. So I know him, I've worked with him, and we've done good work together in the ANC, and with him also as a former Minister of Arts and Culture, I've served as the national chairperson of local content there, nominated by him. So I knew him. And when this whole thing started coming together from an investigation perspective, I've attempted to reach out to him and to speak to him, in as much as I've attempted to speak to Usis Pilisiwe also on the pension side to say, can we just resolve this amicably and please speak to your people? I've sent...
Pilisiwe is now Natim Teto's wife.
Yes.
The late Natim Teto.
Yes. And, I've sent a lot of people to try and broker peace and mediate and speak to them and speak some sense into them to say, please, whatever it is that we are fighting for, let's talk about it, let's resolve it.
But this is also pension fund fraud.
Correct.
Alexander Forbes is involved.
Correct. So, that's really, I think, for the longest of time, I've also protected a lot of people's reputations by keeping quiet. I've been labeled as that woman who talks too much, troublemaker. Hey, malinteng walwana, it's amadi court, why expose Zana? Ki whistleblower,
Whistleblower.
Yeah.
Ish.
Dangerous. Her.
So outside of people trying to assassinate you, then you're also almost poisoned, right? You say you've been almost poisoned twice.
Yes.
What had happened then? What led to that?
Look, it was ingested. It was the first one was cyanide, and the second one, it was a whole lot of things. I mean, I still have the medical report. I drank, something.
Where were you? Because clearly more didn't think about poisoning.
Yes.
Where were you?
I was at a birthday party, and the second occasion I was at work. Yeah. So you can imagine what now that does to you, that you don't trust anyone.
Yes.
You really don't trust anyone. And then you get to a point where you just have to trust God. Because you can't, even Metsiana, it's like, even the seed, the microphone, you have to now rise above that to say, you know what? If I'm still alive after all of that, I mean, it took me a year to heal from the poison. And it was painful. It was scary. So people die from those kind of things. You now begin to have faith that says, if I'm still alive in all of that, even when I didn't know that people were after my life, why would God let me go now? Especially now that I've taken so many other people along. I've done talks with the Gogos of Soweto that have experienced a similar thing. I'm sure you've also seen it in the news. I've addressed them. I've been there, encouraging them, supporting them, showing them the way to say, I against so. I Zama public protector. Hey, here's General Khumalo's number. But phone him and tell him that you want accountability, you want this case resolved. So I've now had to guide and support with the heavy weight that I was carrying, even help other people to carry their weight. And I got to a point where I stopped being afraid. I tell people now that fear is not in my wiring, in my system. I've got no emotion of fear whatsoever. People ask me, why are you so calm? I'm not afraid. I'm not even afraid of dying now.
But you do realize, obviously, how huge this is, because this is possibly involving very high-ranking officials within the ANC or within government, a future president of this country, possibly, and a Chinese syndicate that is ideally stealing the country under our noses.
Yeah, correct. I've lived this life. It's nothing new. I was recently intimidated by a fellow diplomat who was threatening to expose me because he had found out the other details that have yet to be aired out in the courtrooms through, my conversations with him and me being in proximity, him being in close proximity to my family. And I said to him, please, I've got a few journalists that are my cheerleaders in this thing. I can send them your number, vice versa, and then you can expose me, because I've lived this. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. If PKTT and General Mukhwanazi can get into cell phones of people, and I know that cyber warfare is one of the things that I live with on a daily basis. I know they look, I know they're wondering. I know they are investigating, and I know this will be resolved. And I've already, to some extent, received justice and vindication because of this whole expose that he did with that press conference. So these things are there. I get hacked. People see what's in my phone. They see me having conversations with the ruling family, my aunts asking for help. They see me exchanging WhatsApp messages with the Honorable Deputy President Paul Mashatile, begging for justice. Just, I'm not trying to fix everything here. I'm just fighting for my rights, and I'm a mother fighting for my children. I'm not a former politician comrade. I'm not Ambassador so-and-so. I'm not Dr. so-and-so. I am Khumoetsile. I am fighting for my rights. And I'm fighting for the right to live every day of my life.
Good luck, Khumo. Keep biting that bullet as hard as you can, because imagine if you didn't. It's the one thing that I always say when people ask me, why do we do the kind of work that we do as investigative journalists? Imagine if we didn't, because that voice would have never been heard.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. I really, really appreciate the time you've taken and having been honest with us about something that is so personal and close to you, because your life is definitely in danger, but the truth is far more important than anything else at this point in time in our country. So thank you.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right?
So my heart is beating fast now because I don't know what's going to happen when I step out of your office.
You'll be fine.
Emhlabeni kaJehova subscribe nina futhi nibabi if ubheke le channel for 10 minutes longer na subscribe umubi dog. That's why bakuchithela ngoba awuna commitment, unama commitment issues. Subscribe lapho ngeke sizwe ngawo.